off all these siege tanks now. Those drones really desperately trying to run for their lives. There's Wednesday Night vVv Gaming. Up new strategy. I know there was concerns back when mules mined faster from gold mineral patches. That's been solved now, so we will no longer famously see rough mine out a gold mineral patch before the 10-minute mark in the game any longer. As the game game 3 here on Wednesday Night Starcraft does get underway, it is going to be Ender representing underrated gaming versus Hasuu, and we'll see if underrated's Ender is the genius that he thinks he is.
That's a little bit of pressure there. Hasuu is going to be spawning as the green Protoss in the eastern position. Again, he is up 2-0 tonight on Wednesday Night Starcraft. Puts vVv up 2-0 in the best of 7 clan war, and his opponent, perhaps the anchor, coming in a little bit early for underrated gaming, is going to be the blue Terran Ender spawning in the western position. So like we said, gold minerals, 5 of them in each of the corners here, along with a rich Vespian geyser. So if either player is able to sneak and defend that for a few minutes, it could definitely give them a bit of an advantage, but we'll see what goes down in the game.
All right, so a Protoss versus Terran here. Probe now making his way down and doing a bit of early scouting, wanting to make sure that Hasuu wants to make sure that he can actually get inside the base. A lot of times Terran players will build a barracks and then start a supply depot to finish off the wall in, preventing a probe from really being able to see inside. At that point, the Protoss player has to kind of guess what's going on. And by not knowing what's going on inside a base, Protoss players just generally feel a little bit less secure, and they may react in the wrong way. So Hasuu, knowing that information on your opponent is definitely worth early scouting, as the probe now wandering around on the inside, perhaps waiting to see if a gas is placed down.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he plays it pretty much the same as the first game. I feel like, he had some good play in that first game, Hasuu did, with those zealots, getting run-bys and or walk-bys. I guess nothing really compares to a Zergling run-by. It's hard to call anything else a run-by, but getting in those mineral lines and taking down SCVs. But I feel like that's something that if your opponent is really sharp, you're not going to be able to do all that much. So I feel like in that first game, Hasuu was maybe even a little bit behind until that happened. So we'll see whether that was a bit of a warm-up for him, whether his next PvT game, which this is going to be his next challenge, he is a little bit more clean in his play, and we'll see whether he goes for sort of the same strategies, getting out early gateway units, some early observers to try to see what his opponent's doing, and then just playing relatively passively and reacting.
All right, there is the probe now wandering around on the inside. Oh, an SCV does come in to snipe it down, or does the Marine get the kill? The Marine does get the final shot off there, as Hasuu pretty much knows that his opponent is completely gasless at this point. And it looks like there will be a command center being placed down here at the southern portion of the base. And then this pretty much looks to a very similar build that we saw in game 1. Most likely Ender will follow this up with a double racks build, followed up with double gas, and then just try to rely on Marines and Marauders with a bunker on the low ground to prevent any early harassment. Hasuu getting in his own Nexus as well, the Nexus in the proper position, so even though the command center does have about a 30-second lead, I think the Nexus will be able to start mining much more quickly.
Yeah, he's going to have to make it into an orbital and then lift it off, and probably get a few bunkers down there to defend against early gateway pressure. Now we see one gas coming from Ender, there's the second, so again, he's opening up the same way that Crazy did in the first game, and Hasuu opening up similarly as well. Just has this one gas, he's going to get out a few more units, perhaps a few more gateways, before he starts teching up a little bit any more than he is now. But both players just establishing their early economy, 21-21, and we're just in the early game of a relatively standard PvT.
Right now, Ender is still supply blocked, and he's going to get some additional supply from his command center, but that was about a 15-second supply block, so that may end up hurting the overall harvester count just a little bit. We are at 23 probes compared to 21. Orbital command currently being upgraded as well. The Nexus is going to finish warping in now. Probes already being transferred down to the low ground, and Hasuu should be able to get this base up and running pretty quickly, as there should be chrono boosts now charging up at both the main base and the natural expansion.
Yeah, so now we see the Marines coming down here, going to try to pick off a Stalker or two. We'll see if Hasuu keeps those alive. They are able to take down a Marine, but they take a lot of actual damage there in addition to shields. And now, like you said, he's going to have to lift up the orbital. He's going to have to place down a few bunkers, whereas back in Hasu's base, he's already mining, taking advantage of that, that second base, which is down in the correct position.
All right, Ender also somehow still has an SCV inside Hasu's base, revealing that Warp Gate tech has just been completed. It looks like Ender won't be able to escape with his SCV there, as now Stalkers, Sentries just making their way, and we'll see what happens with another pylon here at what would normally be called the third base. And this is one of those tricky situations on dual site where that third base is a little bit far away. It's really difficult to defend as it really opens you up. And for the longest time, I had thought that Zerg players didn't like the map just because of how difficult the third base was. But we'll see whether or not either of these players try to establish it or if they start to butt heads first.
I think this is actually going to be really good timing for Ender if he pushes out as soon as Stim finishes. He's got these 3 racks working hard here, sending out more and more units, and similarly to Crazy's timing attack in the first game, he's really going to be able to take advantage of the high DPS of these units compared to the gateway units of Hasuu. Hasuu just now coming out with more gateway units. He's coming out with his first Immortal as well, and if Ender hits at the right time here, he could do some significant damage, as the map's a little bit different than in Daybreak, where you have that ramp up the upper ramp with the destructible rocks there, able to get force fields down. This might be a little bit harder to defend. We'll see if Ender takes advantage.
Yep, it looks like the attack will be happening sometime around the 10-minute mark. That's when we'll have our first two medevacs in the air. Hasuu should know the timings, and now he's going out for a little bit of a check as well. Stalker's going to go ahead and take down some Marines. They get taken down relatively quickly, and now holding one Xel'Naga tower. Do see a good portion of the map. Hasuu does have 3 pylons in a rather strange location. They will be able to reinforce momentarily, but Ender with a 6 supply lead right now, and looking to continue to add on to that as he's currently training up 1 medevac at a time. But behind this, Ender is also building up 3 bunkers, so he may be playing a little bit more defensively than you expect as Hasuu now establishes his 3rd.
And Ender actually coming out with tanks. Pretty interesting. We don't see that often in TVP. I mean, obviously they're good defensively, but getting him in position and getting him to do damage against the shielded units of Protoss can be pretty difficult. And now Siege Tech is started, so he will be going, I guess, for a big tank army along with this bio. I thought maybe he just was squeezing out a tank or 2 while he was switching some add-ons around, but it looks like he will be committing to Siege Tech. We have Hasuu with his 3rd base going down. There's a scan. Great timing by Ender right as my screen was on it. So Ender knows that the 3rd base is going down for Hasuu, and that's going to signify a good time for him to push out an attack. Siege Tech is almost done, and it's going to be a pretty tough attack to defend.
All right, we see a cancellation on that Nexus already. 5 Zealots warping in, so there's going to be a little bit more beef to the Zealot army. And now the Marines and the Marauders with siege tanks coming back to perhaps flank on a different side, but there is a Zealot at the Xel'Naga tower. He will keep track of this army. And so far, they're playing a little of this yin-yang, trying to counter each other, trying to see who can get in proper position first, as Zealots and Immortals trying to perhaps come in from a flank. And there is going to be a flank here. There is some units getting caught in transit. There's some force fields, and this is going to be a very bad attack as long as Hasuu actually engages right now. He needs to engage. The Immortals are in position, and this is looking very, very bad for Ender.
Yeah, Hasuu split his army there. At the first point, the southern units weren't attacking. They were actually sort of moving towards the tower, and I think that's actually going to give Ender the opportunity to clean up this force, as Hasuu went in a little bit too early with his northern force, and his southern force just did not hit at the right time. When you flank like that, both forces have to hit at the same time. You have to hit with all your power. Instead, Ender was able to chew up that northern force just a little bit. The southern force did not do the damage that it needed to. It came in a little bit late, and now Ender in a fine position here. It's 104 to 75. Hasuu gonna have to pull back to his natural and try to defend.
Yeah, I really thought that Hasu's units would be able to engage. They were just sitting there for a little while longer, and It's exactly how you described it. And now we see that there's going to be an expansion over here by Ender at the 6 o'clock position. I believe one Immortal somehow dancing his way through the entire fight. It will be able to survive. He has 5 kills. I believe 3 of them were siege tanks, so Hasuu really lucking out in that battle there, as we now see Zealots and Immortals doing a bit of a move. The Zealots do have charge, and here we go. Here's the engagement.
Yeah, that's going to make a big difference this time, as the medevac's almost all out of energy, so Ender's forces here going to have Zealots surrounding them. There is a tank doing a lot of damage to these Zealots. The tank going to be quickly focused down by these Immortals, though. They go down so quickly. And Hasuu turned a little bit of a corner here, took that last battle. That might be what he needs to get back into this one.
Yeah, Hasuu now with 3 Archons at the 6 o'clock location. Archons and Immortals together up against Terra and Bio with not that many medevacs. SCVs coming off the mineral line in order. And wow, what a crazy, crazy switch here as Hasuu somehow macros back into this. And this is looking very, very bad as Ender cannot really do much. We see that the Ooh was destroyed, I believe.
Canceled.
And Hasuu, wow. Let's take a look at the losses. We are dead neck and neck, 5150 versus 5100, even after the destruction of that command center.
And Ender pulled about 35 SCVs there, so his economy hurting for just a moment. I think that Hasuu might have been able to push in there for the win. Just one tank was set up, and Ender has no answer for these Archons and charge lots at this point.
Yeah, this is a very different army than you normally see from a Protoss player. There is hardly any Stalkers, and I actually agree with this play. He's instead focusing on Archons, focusing on Immortals, and he's also getting High Templars with Psystorm. If all of these High Templars have enough energy for 1 or even 2 Psystorms, the game is going to be completely flipped. But because of this delay, Ender is able to macro up and get even more medevacs. So the medevacs will start to charge up some energy, and we'll see if Ender can really deal a devastating blow like he did earlier, or if Hasuu will be able to just stop the attack and do a counter push.
Yeah, I think the next encounter has to be on Ender's terms. He's got siege tanks, and they're going to do a lot of damage, but you know, the upfront damage from the siege tanks just going to weaken the units a little bit. It's not going to kill a ton of units, so he's got to make sure that he's in siege mode, all set up when the Protoss attacks or when they do fight. And, you know, Hasu's just going to try to catch him unaware at times. He does have Storm Finish. He's got some High Templar with enough energy as well. And 1 or 2 big storms here could end this one.
All right, here we go. High Templars do have enough energy. There's a Psystorm. There's one Psystorm. Are we going to get more Psystorm? The Siege Tanks are now getting Psystormed as well. Another Psystorm could come in across all of the Bio in the back. That was a heavy hit, as the Immortals are going to be able to finish off a lot of those Marauders. They didn't even have to focus down the Siege Tanks. And we'll see what's going to happen here. The Marauders and the Marines are all in getting into the red. The Immortals now making their way over. Archons do move very, very fast, getting a lot of feedback damage. And there's the GG. Well played by Ender.
Crazy. Once again, I really felt like Hasuu was behind there. He had to cancel that third. He lost a lot of his army, but just tried and true, that Zealot Archon mix held up very well against the Bio with just a few tanks in there. The tanks did their best to do damage, but when you've got Archons going in first with so many shields, it just does not do the same type of damage that it does to other races in TVT and, you know, TVZ, where you can really take out a huge chunk of life and oftentimes many units at the start of a battle. Against Protoss with those shields, tanks just don't fare quite as well, especially once the Zealots have charge. They can get in there so quickly, and then Storm was just icing on the cake. Very impressive play there from Hasuu.